In today's episode, we're diving deep into the gritty realities of Chicago's gang culture, focusing on the notorious Shield's Gangster Disciples set, their rivalries, and the violent episodes that have shaped their history. From the streets of Englewood to the ongoing feuds with Taytown and other rival gangs, the stories we're covering highlight the tragic consequences of gang violence in the city. We'll explore the origins and evolution of Shields, delve into the murder of Taytown's Tayskii, and examine the shocking cases that have left a lasting impact on the community. These stories aren't just about the violence, they're about the lives lost, the families affected, and the relentless cycle that continues to grip Chicago's neighborhoods.
Got it for the city, but they sleeping on shit we did, they chasing cloud, I keep it on me. Swear to God, I'ma wake them up. 2 clips I ever clutch, I'm steady popping 30s.
How you coming, shorty?
Flow like any minute, mighty Mo, you feel me?
Hold on the floor like
Yeah, that shit on the flow, ain't no more here with us, you know what I'm saying?
Structure in the street, so we let heat blow. We call destruction when it's beef, so we gon' keep scoring. These I'm blowing up just like C4. I'm turned up, ain't turning down.
As we get into the gritty streets of Englewood, Chicago, where the Shields Gangster Disciples set holds down their territory on 57th and Shields. This block has a storied history, once controlled by the Mickey Cobras before the rise of the Gangster Disciples. While some gangs claim territory they don't actually occupy, Shields is a different story. They're firmly rooted on 57th and Shields, and they're a force to be reckoned with. Shields isn't your typical set, it's about 90% Gangster Disciples, with a small presence of Mickey Cobras. The gang traces its origins back to the Row Boys, named after the row houses on 57th and Normal. They were once clicked up with another local set called Dodge City. But as the years passed and Dodge City faded away in the 2010s, the Mickey Cobras flipped to Shields, merging their territory with the Row Boys to form what we know today as Shields. When it comes to beefs, Shields is in the middle of a heated war. Their primary rivals are Taytown and Lamron. Shields was allegedly involved in the murder of Tayskii, a key figure in Taytown and a close friend of rapper Lil Durk. 2 Shields members are currently behind bars for Tayskii's murder. Despite rumors that 300 is wiping out Shields, the war between them is far from one-sided. Shields has taken out several Taytown members in retaliation. Another fierce rivalry is with MOB, another notorious Chicago gang. It is widely rumored that Shields is allegedly responsible for the death of MOB Scrap, a well-known figure in Chicago's drill scene. Scrap was infamous for beefing with particularly the Black Disciples. His death only fueled the ongoing conflict between Shields and their rivals. On the evening of July 6, 2011, Tayskii was among a crowd on the 6100 block of South Normal when violence erupted. According to prosecutors, On1 Reynolds, a 28-year-old from the 5600 block of South Shields, was a passenger in a gold Cadillac that pulled up to the scene. Armed with an assault rifle, Reynolds opened fire on the crowd, while the driver of the vehicle allegedly used a handgun to join in the attack. The hail of bullets tragically ended Tayskii's life and left a 15-year-old boy wounded, shot 3 times in the leg. Eyewitnesses at the scene identified Reynolds as the gunman who wielded the assault rifle, leading to his arrest and subsequent charge of first-degree murder. But Reynolds wasn't the only one implicated in this senseless act of violence. A month later, another man, Marlon Boyce, 27, was also charged with first-degree murder for his role in the shooting. Despite being rushed to Stroger Hospital, Tayskii succumbed to his injuries, leaving a void in the lives of those who knew and loved him. This shooting is closely linked to the ongoing rivalry between the Shields gang and Taytown, with OTFD, a close affiliate of Lil Durk and a known Taytown Black Disciple member, allegedly involved in the case. Deed, who has a reputation in the streets, recently managed to beat the charges related to this incident, further fueling tensions between the rival factions. A fatal shooting involving Travis Henry, a member of the Shields gang, who was gunned down in a brutal attack. Travis Henry, known for his ties to the Shield set, was targeted in what appears to be a planned hit, with strong ties to the ongoing street conflicts in the city. The incident occurred as Henry sat in his vehicle with a witness when a blue van pulled up alongside them. According to the witness, the van was occupied by 4 men, all African American. Without warning, one of the men exited the van, produced a handgun, and began firing multiple shots into Henry's vehicle. In a desperate attempt to escape, the witness tried to back the car away, but ended up crashing into a parked car and a fence. The gunman and his accomplices fled the scene, speeding southbound on Shields Avenue in the blue van. When officers arrived, they found Travis Henry slumped over in the passenger seat, showing no signs of life. The crime lab was immediately called to the scene as the investigation kicked into high gear. Nino, a member of the Mickey Cobras from 057 Shields, who is now serving 25 years in prison for the 2014 murder of Weezy, a known member of Taytown. The tragic incident took place on a Sunday afternoon in the Englewood neighborhood on the south side. DeMarco Lyons, also known as Weezy, was just 22 years old when he was gunned down. Lyons was walking on the sidewalk in the 300 block of West 60th Place around 2:45 p.m. when an unknown man approached him and shot him once in the chest. The shooter fled the scene in a gray 4-door vehicle, leaving Lyons to die at the scene. Authorities later identified Lyons as a parolee with gang affiliations. The case took a turn when Nevada Hicks, an 18-year-old high school student from the South Side, was charged with first-degree murder in connection with Lyons' death. Witnesses identified Hicks as the gunman, and he allegedly admitted to others that he had committed the crime. Despite his young age, Hicks had a prior record, having pleaded guilty to a juvenile battery case in 2011. After more than 2 years, Hicks, who was 20 by the time of his sentencing, pleaded guilty to the murder of Lyons. Judge Lawrence Flood sentenced him to 25 years in prison, with credit for the 780 days he had already served in the Cook County Jail. The sentencing marked the end of a tragic chapter in the ongoing cycle of violence that plagues neighborhoods like Englewood. A CTA bus became the scene of a deadly shooting in the early hours of Monday morning. As the #29 State Street bus was traveling southbound near 34th Street in the Bronzeville neighborhood, a violent altercation broke out between passengers. It was just after midnight when things took a deadly turn. According to reports, one of the passengers pulled out a gun and opened fire on another, striking a man in his late 20s in the chest. The victim was rushed to the hospital but, tragically, did not survive. The bus driver, who was simply doing his job, was also caught in the crossfire, suffering a gunshot wound to the shoulder. Fortunately, he's expected to recover after undergoing surgery. The shooter fled the scene on foot after the bus crashed into a curb, leaving behind a shaken community and a scene marked only by tire tracks and a knocked-over street post. At around 12:20 a.m., a 30-year-old man, identified as Deshaun Jacobs, and a 21-year-old woman were standing on the sidewalk in the 5900 block of South Peoria Street when a dark-colored SUV drove by him. Shots were fired. Deshaun Jacobs, who was struck in the neck, was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but sadly succumbed to his injuries later that morning. Jacobs was a resident of the Englewood neighborhood, a community that has been deeply impacted by this senseless act of violence. The woman, who was also hit, sustained a gunshot wound to her right leg. She was taken to the same hospital, where her condition was stabilized. Today, we're covering the tragic death of DeMonte Glover, also known as Bubbles 057 Shields, who was fatally shot in a drive-by on February 2nd in Chicago's New City neighborhood. 2 men, 31-year-old Terrence McNutt and 18-year-old Jalen Smith, have been charged with first-degree murder in connection with the shooting. Surveillance footage shows the 2 men at a nearby mobile gas station shortly before the attack. Glover, just 21 years old, walked past their vehicle at the station, unaware of what was about to happen. Moments later, McNutt circled the block, and as Glover walked away from the gas station, the Dodge pulled up behind him on West Garfield Boulevard. A witness saw an arm in an orange jacket extend from the car's window, firing multiple shots. Glover was struck several times and later pronounced dead at the University of Chicago Medical Center. McNutt, who was on parole at the time, was arrested with multiple weapons in his possession. Smith was taken into custody the following day. Both men reportedly identified themselves in stills from the surveillance footage. On the evening of Thursday, September 14, 2023, Chicago police responded to a ShotSpotter alert and multiple 911 calls reporting a shooting at 69th and Justine. When officers arrived, they found Willy lying on the sidewalk with gunshot wounds to his abdomen and leg. Willy was immediately rushed to the University of Chicago Hospital, but despite the best efforts of medical staff, he was pronounced dead shortly after. According to police, Willy had been riding an electric scooter when an unknown assailant approached him on foot and opened fire. The shooter then fled the scene, running eastbound down an alley. Today, we bring you a tragic story from Chicago's southwest side, where a young man was found brutally beaten to death in his own home. On Wednesday afternoon, 21-year-old Trevin Moy was discovered unresponsive in his residence on the 4900 block of South Maplewood Avenue. Chicago police and the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office have confirmed the identity of the victim as Trevin Moy. Around 1:58 p.m., a family member made the horrifying discovery, finding Trevin with severe blunt force trauma to the head. Sadly, he was pronounced dead at the scene. This senseless act of violence has left the family and community in mourning as authorities continue to investigate the circumstances surrounding Trevin Moy's tragic death. Our thoughts are with his loved ones during this incredibly difficult time. Today, we're covering the tragic death of Shaquille Bryant, also known as Shaq 057 Shields, who lost his life after a brutal shooting in Chicago's Woodlawn neighborhood. On Monday evening, around 6 p.m., 31-year-old Shaquille Bryant was standing on the sidewalk when two individuals exited a black SUV and opened fire. The attack left Bryant critically injured, and he was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center. Despite the efforts of medical staff, Bryant tragically succumbed to his injuries a few days later, being pronounced dead at 12:58 p.m. on Thursday. His death marks another heartbreaking loss in a city grappling with relentless gun violence. As we conclude today's episode, it's clear that the cycle of violence in Chicago's gang-ridden neighborhoods has left an indelible mark on the community. The tragic deaths of figures like Tayskii and Deshaun Jacobs, and the incarceration of individuals like Nino and OTFD, serve as stark reminders of the human cost of these ongoing conflicts. While law enforcement continues its efforts to bring justice to those affected, the deeper issue remains how to break the cycle of violence and bring peace to these streets. As the stories we've shared today reveal, the impact of gang rivalries extends far beyond the individuals involved, affecting entire communities and leaving a legacy of pain and loss. A set of the Black P stones based around 62nd and Evans in Chicago has a rich history that dates back to the 1990s. Originally known as Chieftown, No Law has seen its territory and influence shift over the years. Despite its relatively small size compared to other sets in the area, No Law has maintained a significant presence in its neighborhood. The set's history is marked by both loyalty and tragedy, with several members lost to violence over the years. Situated near powerful gangs like the 800 and Jarrow City, No Law's legacy continues to resonate on the streets of Chicago as the community grapples with the challenges of gang violence and its impact. Let's take a closer look at No Law, a set of the Black P stones based around 62nd and Evans in Chicago. This set has deep roots in the area, with a history that stretches back to the 90s. Originally known as Chieftown, No Law's territory has shifted over time. Currently, their reach extends from 62nd to 63rd between Langley and Evans, but this wasn't always the case. At one point, their turf stretched from 60th to 63rd. Despite its longevity, No Law is relatively small compared to some of the larger sets in the area. They don't have many younger members specifically claiming No Law, but they do have active older members. The younger generation from this neighborhood seems to be gravitating towards Marcus Way, a set that's growing in influence. Over time, it's possible that No Law's territory could be absorbed by Marcus Way, but that's a process that will take time. No Law is situated near some well-known and powerful sets, like the 800 Mickey Cobra set in Jaro City. Despite their smaller size, No Law remains a significant presence in their part of the city, with a history and legacy that continues to resonate with those familiar with the streets of Chicago. On April 2, 2009, 18-year-old Tommy Williams was shot and killed. Just weeks later, 15-year-old Kevin Watson was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. But as the trial unfolded, things weren't as clear-cut as they seemed. The prosecution's key witnesses, Gerald Baker, Tommy Robinson, William Bud Jones, and Eugene Ollie, initially identified Watson as the shooter in their statements. However, when they took the stand, all four claimed they couldn't recall key details, or they outright denied their earlier statements. This raised serious questions. Were they scared, or was something else going on? For instance, Baker had previously told investigators he saw Watson running from the scene, but on the stand, he suddenly couldn't remember. Robinson had identified Watson in a lineup, but at trial, his memory was fuzzy. Jones had once said he saw Watson shoot Williams, but in court, he backtracked, claiming he never saw the shooter's face. Ollie, too, seemed unsure, even though he had previously testified that Watson looked nervous and muttered, "What the hell did I do?" The defense called just one witness, David McIntyre, who testified that he didn't see Watson at all that day, and the shooter he saw looked different. But his story was questioned since he hadn't mentioned this before. Chicago's South Side has seen its share of tragedy, but few stories highlight the struggles of this community, like the death of Damian Turner, also known as Mo Joe. Mo Joe, a member of the No Law/800 gang, was only 18 when he was killed in 2010 by members of the 600 gang. His death sparked a wave of outrage and led to calls for better trauma care on the South Side. Damian Turner was a vibrant, happy young man who loved life and people, according to his mother, Sheila Rush. On the night of his death, he was shot at 61st and Cottage Grove, just blocks away from the University of Chicago Medical Center. Despite the proximity, he was taken nearly 10 miles away to Northwestern Memorial Hospital because there was no Level 1 trauma center on the South Side. This tragedy raised serious questions. Why does a violence-plagued area like the South Side lack a trauma center capable of saving lives in those critical moments after a shooting? The University of Chicago had once operated such a center, but closed it in 1988. Citing the strain it placed on other departments. Turner's death reignited the debate, with his family and community demanding action. Tragedy struck Monday morning in what locals considered a rare safe haven amidst a landscape of danger. Around 10 a.m., 27-year-old Philip Henderson, known to residents as Jim Shoe, was standing on a corner in the 600 block of East 62nd Street. It was then that a man approached, pulled out a gun, and shot him in the upper chest. Henderson, a resident of the 6200 block of South Langley Avenue, was rushed to Stroger Hospital, but despite efforts to save him, he was pronounced dead at 10:38 a.m. Witnesses say they heard a single gunshot followed by the screeching of tires as a car sped away. But it wasn't over. 3 more shots echoed through the neighborhood as Henderson, who tried to flee after the first shot, collapsed. The shooter then stood over him, fired again, and quickly fled the scene. While Henderson was known to have gang affiliations, it's unclear if this brutal attack was gang-related. As of now, no arrests have been made. What makes this incident particularly shocking to residents is that it happened in what they describe as a safe zone. Surrounded by more dangerous territories, their block has generally been a place of peace, a rare middle ground in an area otherwise marred by violence. "We're in the middle, so we're good. We're peacemakers over here, baby," said one resident, reflecting the community's sense of security that was shattered on this tragic day. Another tragic shooting unfolded Thursday night in Chicago's South Side, this time claiming the life of 25-year-old Rizelle Phillips in the West Woodlawn neighborhood. Phillips, a resident of the 6700 block of South Clyde Avenue, was sitting inside his vehicle around 9:10 p.m. when a car pulled up beside him on 6119 South Cottage Grove Avenue. Without warning, the assailant opened fire, shooting multiple rounds into the left side of Phillips's vehicle. Tragically, Phillips sustained several gunshot wounds. Despite the efforts to save him, he was transported to Stroger Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 9:56 p.m. No other injuries were reported in the incident. In 2016, a young man known as D-Boy, who was affiliated with the No Law 800 gang, was tragically killed at just 16 years old. In the wake of his death, Marcus Way was created in his honor, serving as a memorial to remember and pay tribute to his life. Tragedy struck the Woodlawn neighborhood on Chicago's South Side this past weekend, as a shooting left 2 men dead, another critically injured, and a 4th wounded. On Wednesday, authorities announced charges against 20-year-old Callow Gilmore from the West Pullman neighborhood. Gilmore, who lives on the first block of E. Brayton, is accused of being the gunman in this deadly incident. The chaos unfolded around 4:30 p.m. on Sunday afternoon when shots erupted on the 6100 block of S. Evans, just a block south of Washington Park. According to police, a group of people was gathered on a front porch when a dark blue Chevy Impala pulled up. Moments later, a man stepped out of the vehicle and unleashed a barrage of gunfire. That man, police now say, was Callow Gilmore. As we reported earlier, Gilmore was apprehended shortly after the shooting, right on the same block where the tragic event took place. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office later identified the 2 victims who lost their lives as 31-year-old Randy Punke and 19-year-old Sean Douglas. Additionally, a 35-year-old man was critically injured after being struck multiple times. There was also a 4th victim, whose age is unknown, who managed to self-transport to a local hospital and is believed to be in good condition. Beaver No Law was killed by an 083 No Limit member in Iowa in 2017. His murderer was found guilty in 2021 and sentenced to 50 years. The story of No Law is one of resilience and loss. From the tragic deaths of members like Tommy Williams, Damian Mojo Turner, D-Boy, Twin King, and Jim Shoe, to the ongoing struggles for survival and relevance in a constantly shifting landscape, No Law's history is deeply intertwined with the broader narrative of Chicago's South Side. As the community continues to navigate the realities of gang life, the legacy of No Law serves as a reminder of the human cost of violence and the enduring impact it has on
Drexside, a Titanic P-Stone set. Drexside is a Titanic stone set located on 52nd and Drexel, right below 051 Young Money. They are one of the few remaining Titanic P-Stone sets in Chicago. Drexside was once very close with 051 Young Money, but it all changed when 051 Young Money allegedly killed Big Moe from Drexside because he was cool with THF 46. Now Drexside is in a strange situation where the generation that is around 25 years old are beefing with 051, while the shorties still hang out on 51st and Cottage Grove. There's even a pic of Big Moe's little brother hanging out with Little Curtis from 051. Drexside are famous because of the Big Moe store, a corner store in their main block that is commonly named after Big Moe. They also rep Ishmael City because of Ishmael, who died in 2011. Drexside is the last remaining Titanic stone gang in the low end. These are some sets that Drexside are cool with. THF-46, a set made up of Gangster Disciples, Black Disciples, and Mickey Cobras. 600, a Black Disciple set. EBE, a Titanic stone set. Paxtown, a Gangster Disciple set. These are some sets that Drexside beef with. 051 Young Money, a set made up of Mickey Cobras, Gangster Disciples, and Black P-Stones. Ghetto World, a four-corner hustler set. Moose Block, a Gangster Disciple and four-corner hustler set. Moortown, a Gangster Disciple set. Blackgate, a Black Disciple set.
The famous LAFA Gang, Chicago. Welcome to our video on the LAFA Gang, one of Chicago's most notorious criminal organizations. In this video, we'll dive into the history, activities, and affiliations of the LAFA Gang, and explore their place in the complex web of gang violence in Chicago. The LAFA Gang, an acronym for Love and Forever Always, is a rebellious organization that emerged from a faction of the 101st and Luella-based Gang 10 Gang. The group's formation was prompted by the tragic death of a member named Anna, and their subsequent decision to sever ties with their former allies, EBK and 10 Gang. Since then, the LAFA Gang has become an independent entity with a stronghold in the area spanning from Van Vlissingen to Torrance, between 99th and 103rd Streets. The heart of their turf is centered at 101st and Luella. Infamous for their criminal activities, the LAFA Gang is highly active and engages in various illicit pursuits. According to reports, 6 individuals, including 2 alleged members of the Chicago gang LAFA, have been charged in St. Louis County District Court for their involvement in heroin sales in Duluth. Duluth Police Lieutenant Jeff Casel stated at a news conference that this group was responsible for a significant portion of the increased heroin use in the area over the past 3 years. The group has been linked to a faction of the Gangster Disciples known as LAFA, which is described as a violent street gang based in the Jeffrey Manor neighborhood of Chicago. 2 additional alleged gang members are expected to be charged next week. According to Duluth Police Lieutenant Jeff Casel, LAFA gang members engage in similar criminal activities as other Chicago street gangs, such as trafficking firearms and narcotics. However, what sets LAFA apart is their extreme propensity for violence. The gang relies heavily on robbing and extorting other drug dealers for money and drugs. Casel noted that the Lake Superior Drug and Violent Crime Task Force is always concerned that drug sales could escalate into violence, as LAFA is known for its violent behavior. He added that the gang's violent reputation in Chicago has authorities worried about it spreading to other areas, including Duluth. According to Casel, the LAFA gang likely came to Duluth for economic reasons, as the drug market in smaller cities can be more profitable due to less competition and higher demand. The gang was able to establish a foothold in the area and has been operating there for almost a decade. The recent arrests are a significant blow to their operations, but law enforcement remains vigilant in their efforts to combat gang activity and violent crime in the area. Unfortunately, the opioid addiction crisis has hit Duluth hard, and drug dealers see it as an opportunity to make a profit. They can charge much higher prices for drugs like heroin in Duluth compared to bigger cities like Chicago or Minneapolis, where the market may be more saturated. It's a disturbing trend, but one that law enforcement is working hard to combat. Starting in August, the Lake Superior Drug and Violent Crime Task Force initiated 7 undercover purchases of heroin and methamphetamine in Duluth, West Duluth, and Hermantown from Akeem Maurice Assad, who hails from Chicago and is identified as a member of LAFA by the gang unit of the Chicago Police Department. During the investigation, Akeem Maurice Assad, a documented LAFA member by the Chicago Police Department's gang unit, sold heroin and methamphetamine to undercover buyers in Duluth, West Duluth, and Hermantown. Assad, who is from Chicago, directed the buyers to his two associates, who are also LAFA members, when he was out of town to get a new supply of drugs. The 26-year-old associate is currently in custody in Kane County, Illinois, on other drug charges, while the 25-year-old associate is in custody with the Illinois Department of Corrections on a charge of being a felon in possession of a firearm. According to a criminal complaint, Assad sold drugs out of an apartment located in the 1500 block of East 2nd Street, which belonged to Joey Jewell's White Crow. After observing Assad leaving the apartment, law enforcement officers arrested him on Tuesday. Assad led the officers on a police chase from West Duluth to Cloquet before entering a building, where he was arrested without any incident. According to the criminal complaint, Assad is facing 6 felony charges for first-degree controlled substance crime and 1 felony charge for fleeing a police officer. According to the complaint, White Crow is facing 1 count of felony third-degree sale of a controlled substance for selling heroin to the undercover buyer in September. According to the complaint, Gregory Jackson, aka No Limit Greg from the NLMB set, whose residence is unknown, was observed with Assad's associate during surveillance and was present inside a hotel room in Hermantown when a search warrant was executed in September. Although he is identified as a LAFA gang associate, not a member, Kazal said. Jackson faces 2 counts of felony first-degree controlled substance crime and is being held in the St. Louis County Jail on a bail of $200,000. According to Kazal, the task force confiscated a total of 260 grams of heroin worth $52,000 on the street, 80 grams of methamphetamine, and 4 firearms from the 8 individuals. He added that during the investigation, neighbors had noticed suspicious activity but failed to report it to the police. Kazal urged residents to be vigilant and report any unusual or suspicious activity in their neighborhood to the authorities. The LAFA indictment, 2020. Federal prosecutors have issued a 2020 indictment against 11 individuals, including a mother and 2 of her sons, who were previously charged with gun and drug offenses. The updated indictment now includes racketeering and murder charges, alleging that the defendants were part of the LAFA Street gang that violently protected its drug turf in the south side of Chicago and in Minnesota. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois claims the gang engaged in the trafficking of various illicit substances such as marijuana, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and MDMA in both Chicago and Duluth. The gang is also accused of stealing vehicles and using violent retaliation against rivals, former members, and witnesses. These new charges highlight the gang's alleged involvement in a wide range of criminal activities and their use of violence to maintain their position in the drug trade. Keem Assad, age 28, is facing charges of murdering Janine Hancock and Alex C. Johnson in Chicago on July 23, 2012, while Martez Easter, age 27, and Cottrell Mackey, age 26, are charged with killing Denaro Appleton on June 1, 2014, also in Chicago. Similarly, Marty Lane, aged 31, and Reginald Jones, aged 26, are accused of murdering Deontay on March 2, 2015, in South Deering, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The gang members are also facing charges of attempted murder. Carrie Hinton, age 27, Tony Parker, age 25, and Quentin Lucius, age 29, are among the accused members. In May 2019, 11 alleged members of the same gang were indicted on federal drug and gun charges. The group included 42-year-old Harriet McPherson and her sons, 26-year-old Rakim Assad, and 19-year-old Sincere Brannon. Prosecutors said at the time, these charges against the individuals highlight the gang's alleged involvement in a range of violent crimes and their continued use of firearms in carrying out their illegal activities. The new superseding indictment adds racketeering conspiracy charges against 10 of those defendants. Several new gun charges and multiple counts of witness intimidation have also been added in the new indictment. Prosecutors said, racketeering conspiracy charges typically carry sentences up to 20 years in prison, while some of the murder and attempted murder counts could carry life sentences, the U.S. Attorney's Office said. LAFA gang member LAFA Dada has been rumored to have associations with Lil Durk and the Family ODF collective. However, there are also allegations that LAFA Dada and Tayskii was involved in the theft of Chicago-based and ODF artist Lil Zay's property. In addition, Lil Zay has accused both LAFA Dada and Tayskii of stealing his chain from his hotel room while he was sleeping. These incidents have added to the LAFA gang's reputation as a group that engages in various forms of criminal activity. These are some sets that LAFA beefs with: 10 Gang, Gangster Disciples; 07 Gang, Black Disciples and Gangster Disciples; Evans Mob, Gangster Disciples; 051 Young Money, Mickey Cobras, Gangster Disciples and Black Disciples, and has minor tension with multiple other gangs, too many to list. These are some sets that LAFA are allied with: THF46, Gangster Disciples and Black Disciples and Mickey Cobras; in LMB, Loon City, Black P Stones. Gang violence is a persistent issue in many urban areas, including Chicago. The LAFA gang is just one of many gangs that have emerged in the city and are known for their involvement in criminal activities such as drug trafficking, robbery, and violence. However, it is important to recognize that the existence of gangs like LAFA also reflects larger social and economic issues, including poverty, racial inequality, and lack of opportunities. These factors can create conditions in which young people may turn to gangs as a means of survival or a way to find a sense of community and belonging. The alliances and rivalries between gangs also illustrate the complex nature of gang violence in Chicago. Many gangs in the city are divided along racial or ethnic lines, with conflicts between different groups fueling violence and contributing to a sense of territoriality. The history of segregation and inequality in Chicago has played a role in shaping these divisions, with certain neighborhoods and communities being more prone to gang activity than others. In order to address the issue of gang violence in Chicago and other cities, it is important to take a holistic approach that addresses not only law enforcement and criminal justice, but also the underlying social and economic factors that contribute to the problem. This may include investing in education and job training programs, improving access to healthcare and mental health services, and promoting community engagement and empowerment. By addressing the root causes of gang violence, it may be possible to create safer, more equitable communities for everyone.
Is there any Asian gangs out there?
Hell yeah, the Asian Bloods.
Shut the hell up.
Asian Bloods.
In Chicago?
Hell yeah.
What? They deep?
Yeah.
No, seriously.
They deep. Hell.
Oh, what the Asian Bloods?
Yeah.
But they blood homies?
Yeah.
What?
Come from, they come from, they thick as hell, folks.
The Outlaw Bloods are a unique and significant presence in Chicago's gang landscape, being the only blood set in the city, originating from the Vietnamese community in the Uptown neighborhood. The Outlaw Bloods have a history that reflects the broader social and cultural shifts within the community. This article delves into the origins, evolution, and impact of the Outlaw Bloods in Chicago. The Outlaw Bloods emerged from the Vietnamese community in the Uptown neighborhood of Chicago. In the 1970s, Southeast Asian immigrants migrated to the area around Argyle Street, between Leland and Sheridan. By the mid-1970s, this area became known as Vietnamese Town, and by the late 1970s, it was lined with Vietnamese businesses. By the early to mid-1980s, an Asian gang known as the Loco Boys had formed at Leland and Sheridan, defending the area against attacks from other uptown gangs. These youths often clashed with the Brazers, Disciples, and Spanish Gangster Disciples. In 1987, under the Vietnamese Amerasian Homecoming Act, the United States government continued to settle Vietnamese refugees, including those from re-education camps and Amerasians. As young Vietnamese teenagers arrived in Uptown, they encountered gangs such as the Brazers, Black Gangster Disciples, and other gangs affiliated with the Folks. Vietnamese teens often clashed with these groups and were frequently bullied. Some Vietnamese youths joined the Flip City Kings or the Loco Boys, while others connected with the Notorious Bloods gang from Los Angeles. Some of these teens migrated from Los Angeles or had family in California with ties to the Bloods. These uptown youths resided close to the Black P Stones, north of Leland Avenue. They formed connections with both the Bloods and Black P Stones, eventually becoming the Outlaw Bloods. The Outlaw Bloods joined the People Alliance and grew into a formidable force by the early 1990s. Eventually, the Outlaw Bloods absorbed the Loco Boys, creating the Outlaw Loco Bloods. The Outlaw Bloods remained active throughout the 1990s and possibly into the 2000s. The story of the Outlaw Bloods in Chicago is a testament to the complex interplay of migration, community formation, and gang dynamics. As the only blood set in Chicago, the Outlaw Bloods have a distinct identity shaped by their Vietnamese roots and their alliances within the city's gang landscape. Their evolution from the Loco Boys to a powerful faction within the People Alliance highlights their resilience and adaptability. The legacy of the Outlaw Bloods continues to be a significant chapter in the history of gangs.
Almighty Latin King and Queen Nation, also known as Latin Kings. It is one of the largest Hispanic and Latino street and prison gangs worldwide. The gang was founded by Puerto Ricans in Chicago, Illinois in 1954. They are aligned with the People's Nation. 089 Big Time, Latin Kings.
89 Big Time, on L's, we out here right now. King CK, bitch, you know who that is. You know who that the fucking is. Original 89, bitch. Yeah. On L's. We out here. Gangs with the Kings, nigga.
What's up, nigga? We here.
36 Zach TV shit. Hey, get King back here with the diamond, drop it on his face.
What's that? Ice, what's up, King?
You know what it is.
You know what I'm saying?
So hold on, what's on this side of town? What's over here?
We like Kings over here. Kings over here, man. You know how this shit go, man.
And I'm EBK niggas 2087, but 500, you know, just the way to like LTPLJ. It's for the moles, but it's for the whole nation. You know what I mean? CVLs, 4CHs, Lion Kings. You know, you got Lion Kings, Kevin 500. You know what I mean? 4CHs, Vice Lords.
089 Big Time is a Latin King set located on 89th and Escanaba. This set may have been the first Latin King set to form in its neighborhood. 089 Big Time is famous for having one of the biggest trap presences out of all LK sets in the city. 089 Big Time is also a very active set in the streets, one of the more active Latin King sets in Chicago. The 089 Big Time set is also very old. It was started by the Kings in the 70s. It grew larger in numbers in the 1980s. This set is also known for being extremely diverse, with black, white, and Latin members. 089 Big Time Latin Kings, beef with many sets. 083 Dragon Town, made up of Latin dragons. 085 Death Row, made up of conservative vice lords. GMERO Block, made up of Titanic stones. EB Skoway, made up of Titanic stones. EB Angel City, made up of Black P stones, Land stones, Maniac stones. Bugtown, made up of the Almighty Ambrose gang. BB World, made up of Spanish Gangster Disciples. Wacko World Buck City, made up of Spanish Vice Lords. Gunnerside, made up of Gangster 26.
Lynchmen Circon Gangsters, often referred to as Lokes or the L's, has a rich and complex history within the gang landscape of Chicago. Established in 1971 by founding members King Rusty, Icky Nut, and Angel, LSG originally emerged from the Disciple Nation before breaking away to carve out its own identity. With a primary stronghold in Cooper Park, also known as Coopville, the gang's territory spans the Roseland area, specifically from 109th to 111th Streets between Racine and Loomis. Over the years, LSG has seen various shifts in alliances and identities, but its legacy remains influential, particularly in the Wild 100's neighborhood. This narrative highlights notable figures associated with the gang, their tragic fates, and the enduring impact of their lives on the community and the gang itself. The Lynchmen Gangsters, LSG, are a significant set with deep roots in Chicago's gang history. Originally part of the Disciple Nation, they later broke away to establish their own identity. Founded in 1971 by King Rusty, Hickey Nut, and Angel, LSG's primary territory is Cooper Park, also known as Coopville, in the Roseland neighborhood, specifically from 109th to 111th Streets between Racine and Loomis. Larry Hoover, during the formation of the Gangster Disciple Nation, appointed King Rusty, Hickey Nut, and Angel as his top enforcers. Rusty, one of the original Outlaw Supreme gangsters, had settled in Roseland at 95th Street in 1968 alongside 100th Street Sam and Ulysses U.S. Floyd, the founding members of the Outlaws and the Wild Hundreds Gangster Disciples. By 1971, friction arose between some members of the Disciples, leading Rusty and his associates to seek a split from the Disciple Nation, though they maintained ties. Rusty founded the Lynchmen at 107th and Racine in the Racine Courts Apartments of Washington Heights that same year, forming an alliance with the Supreme Gangster Disciples and the Disciple Nation under the name Gangster Lynchmen. As the decade progressed, the Lynchmen relocated to the West Pullman neighborhood, where they took over Cooper Park, Coopville, expanding their territory from 115th to 118th Streets and Ashland to Racine. Throughout the 1970s, the Gangster Disciples and Gangster Lynchmen remained allies, both becoming part of the Folk Nation Alliance in 1978. In the past, LSG had strong ties with several Gangster Disciples sets in the area, but those alliances eventually fell apart. LSG also goes by the names the Lokes or the L's. Though LSG is no longer widely repped, they have evolved into other identities, including the Kush Cowboys and T3 Gang, the latter in honor of a fallen member. Stephen McGee, also known as Lil Steve, was a well-known member of the Lynchmen Gangsters, LSG, and the brother of rapper Memo 600. Tragically, Stephen met his demise on September 19, 2011. In the aftermath of his passing, Steve Drive was established in his honor, a testament to his legacy. Both LSG and 600 rep Steve, keeping his name alive within their communities.
Milk, you know what I'm saying? Kush Cowboys, real Kush Cowboys.
How can the people get in touch with your Big Smokes?
Every day we dressed in black. State of man is on attack. First day of hustling, it was on a rainy day. Couple months of tipping, every day's a rainy day.
Listen, man, shit, I'm about my pay.
Christopher Hooper, also known as Chris Smokes, was a known member of the Lynchmen Gangsters or Kush Cowboys. On March 22, 2015, at the age of 26, he was tragically dealt in a nightclub shooting. The incident occurred at Adriana's Sports Pub in suburban Markham around 1 a.m. during an event featuring the rapper Future. Gunfire erupted following an altercation outside the bar, according to witnesses, resulting in Hooper and critically injuring a woman. This wasn't the first incident at the nightclub, as a man had previously sued Adriana's, claiming insufficient security after being attacked in the parking lot. Hooper had a criminal record and was on parole at the time of his demise for a drug-related conviction. James Bush, also known as Milk, was an 18-year-old beloved member of the Lynchmen Gangsters. He was the younger brother of Darrow, who was part of the same set. Tragically, James met his demise on April 1, 2008, just the day before his family planned to send him to Seattle for a fresh start. His family, wanting to steer him away from the negative influences in the Morgan Park neighborhood, had purchased a one-way ticket for him to move in with his older brother in Seattle. They believed the change of environment would help him focus on school and leave the streets behind. However, instead of gathering to wish him farewell on Wednesday morning, the family mourned his passing after he was shot the night before. The incident took place around 6 p.m. in the 1200 block of West 110th Place, not far from the home where James had grown up. According to neighbors, multiple gunshots rang out, and James was found lying in a front yard. While police suggested the shooting may have been gang-related due to James' associations, his family and friends strongly denied that he was involved in any gang. His aunt expressed her sorrow, wishing they had sent him to Seattle sooner. His close friend added, "James wasn't in no gang, he just hung around the wrong crowd." In his case, it was guilt by association. James, affectionately known as Milk due to his light skin tone, had once been enrolled at Morgan Park High School, but he had stopped attending classes nearly a year prior. Despite his family's efforts to get him back on track, the streets ultimately claimed his life. Marquita Jamieson, also known as Quita, was a 17-year-old affiliate of the Lynchmen Gangsters. She was tragically stabbed during a knife fight on July 6, 2010 in the Morgan Park neighborhood on Chicago's far south side. The incident occurred at 7:39 p.m. outside her home on the 11,000 block of South Loomis Street. According to police, Marquita and another 17-year-old girl, whom she knew, were engaged in a verbal altercation that escalated into violence. The dispute stemmed from an ongoing conflict between their families over a boy. As Marquita attempted to walk away from the confrontation, the other girl grabbed her and fatally stabbed her. Jeremy Marshall, also known as Lil 4, was a known member of the Lynchmen Gangsters and affiliated with Jarrow City. He tragically met his demise on September 22, 2010 in a shooting near the intersection of 63rd Street and Rhodes Avenue in Chicago's Woodlawn neighborhood. At approximately 1:50 p.m., Marshall was approached by two individuals and at least one of them opened fire, according to police reports. He was struck by a gunshot wound in the back and attempted to run but collapsed shortly after. The suspects fled the scene in a vehicle, police said. Cordaro Nash, known as Darrow, a member of the Lynchmen Gangsters and the brother of fellow member Milk, tragically met his demise on November 12, 2010. The shooting occurred around noon near East 111th Street and South Vernon Avenue in Chicago's Roseland neighborhood. Chicago Police Captain Thomas McMahon, who was off duty at the time, heard the gunfire and witnessed the assailants fleeing the scene. Without hesitation, McMahon gave chase, even as the suspects fired shots at him, striking his vehicle. Despite the danger, McMahon continued to pursue the fleeing van through a one-way street and into an alley, though the suspects ultimately managed to escape. Anthony Brown Jr., also known as T3, was a well-respected member of the Lynchmen Gangsters and a rapper. Tragically, he met his demise on December 1, 2011 in Chicago's Woodlawn neighborhood near 63rd Street and Rhodes Avenue. According to police, Brown was approached by two individuals around 1:50 p.m., when at least one of them opened fire. He was shot in the back and attempted to flee but collapsed after a short distance. Two suspects fled the scene in a vehicle. Shortly after the fatal shooting, another victim, a 19-year-old male, was shot in the ankle just a few blocks away on South Cottage Grove Avenue. The teen was taken to Providence Hospital in good condition, though it is unclear if the two shootings were related. James Wilcox, also known as DJ or Holiday, a member of Coopville/LSG, was tragically killed on December 8, 2020, at the age of 27. The fatal shooting occurred in the Englewood neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. Around 5:15 p.m., Wilcox was standing outside a home in the 7300 block of South Stewart Avenue when gunshots rang out, striking him multiple times, according to Chicago police and the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. The stories of the fallen members of the Lynchmen Gangsters serve as poignant reminders of the violence and struggles faced within the gang culture of Chicago. Individuals like James Milk Bush, Marquita Quita Jamieson, and Stephen Lil Steve McGee exemplify the tragic consequences of a life intertwined with gang affiliations, underscoring the broader societal issues of violence and loss in urban environments. The legacy of LSG continues to resonate, as both current members and the communities they inhabit grapple with the realities of gang life, the memories of lost loved ones, and the hope for a future free from the violence that has claimed so many lives. Through the lens of their stories, we gain insight into the complexities of gang identity, loyalty, and the search for belonging, which persist in the fabric of Chicago's neighborhoods today.